A werewolf romance written by Olivia Smith. Listen, this one hits different. You'll understand why. Prologue. I opened my eyes to silk sheets that didn't belong to me. The bed stretched wider than any I'd ever known, carved from dark wood that gleamed like obsidian in the morning light. My head throbbed with a hollow ache, as if someone had scooped out everything I was and left only the shell. I lifted my hand and stared at the ring on my finger. Silver twisted with moonstone, heavy and unfamiliar. The room smelled of pine and leather, masculine and foreign. Panic clawed up my throat. Where was I? Who brought me here? I tried to remember yesterday, last week, anything before this moment, but my mind was a blank canvas. Then the door opened. A man stepped inside, tall and broad-shouldered, with storm-gray eyes that looked at me like I was his entire world. He smiled, but there was pain behind it, something broken and desperate. "Seraphine," he whispered, his voice rough with relief. "You're awake." I didn't know that name. I didn't know him. And when he said the words that shattered everything, I felt the ground disappear beneath me. "Thank the moon goddess. I thought I'd lost you forever. Welcome back, my love. We've been married for 3 years." Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France. I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1. The Stranger Who Calls Me Wife. The man moved closer to the bed, and every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. But my legs wouldn't obey. They felt weak, distant, like they belonged to someone else. He stopped at the edge of the mattress, his gray eyes searching my face with an intensity that made my chest tighten. "Seraphine, it's me," he said softly. "It's Kale." The name meant nothing. I shook my head, pressing my back against the carved headboard. "I don't know you," I whispered. My voice came out raw and unfamiliar, like I hadn't spoken in weeks. His face crumpled for just a second before he controlled it, but I saw the pain flash across his features like lightning. "I know," he said, his jaw tightening. "The healers warned me this might happen. You've been unconscious for 2 weeks. There was an attack. Rogues breached the northern border. You were defending the children in the nursery when one of them struck you from behind." He gestured to his own head. "The blow caused trauma. They said your memories might be fragmented." I touched the back of my skull and felt the tender spot, the raised line of a healing wound beneath my hair. The physical evidence matched his story, but that didn't mean I trusted him. "You're saying I'm your wife," I said slowly, testing the words on my tongue. They tasted like lies. "And I just forgot 3 entire years of my life?" Kyle nodded, his throat working as he swallowed hard. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days, he said quietly. "I've counted every single one." The specificity should have been romantic, but it felt suffocating instead. I looked around the room, desperate for anything familiar. A photograph, a piece of clothing, some evidence that I belonged here. But everything was foreign. The weapons mounted on the wall, the heavy drapes blocking out most of the sunlight, the masculine furniture that spoke of wealth and power. Nothing was mine. "I want to see proof," I said, forcing strength into my voice. "Pictures, documents, something that shows me this is real." Kale's expression shifted to something careful, guarded. "Of course," he said. "I'll have everything brought to you. But Seraphine, you need to rest. Your body is still healing, and pushing yourself too hard could—" "Don't tell me what I need," I interrupted, surprising myself with the sharpness in my tone. Something about his hovering presence made my wolf stir beneath my skin, restless and distrustful. Yes, I could feel her there. My wolf, the one constant thing I still possessed. She didn't recognize this man either. She didn't trust the way he looked at us, like we were something precious and breakable that might shatter if he let us out of his sight. Kyle held up his hands in surrender, taking a step back, "You're right," he said. "I'm sorry. I've been so worried. Seeing you awake, hearing your voice again." He turned away, his shoulders tense beneath the black shirt that stretched across his back. "I thought I'd lost you. I thought you'd never wake up." The raw emotion in his voice should have moved me, but I felt nothing except confusion and fear. How could I mourn a life I didn't remember? How could I trust a man who claimed to love me when every cell in my body screamed that he was a stranger? "I need time," I said finally. "Alone. To think." Kyle looked back at me, and for a moment I saw something flash in his eyes. Frustration, maybe, or anger, but it vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. "Of course," he said, his voice controlled again, perfectly polite. "I'll have food sent up, and the physician will want to examine you later." He moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. "Seraphine, I know this is terrifying. I know you don't remember me, but I promise you, everything I've told you is the truth. You are my mate, my wife, my queen, and I will do whatever it takes to help you remember." Then he left, closing the door softly behind him. The moment I was alone, I threw off the silk sheets and stood on shaking legs. "Queen," he'd said. Not just wife, but queen. Which meant this stranger who claimed to own my heart was a king, and I was trapped in his castle with no memory, no allies, and no idea if anything he'd told me was real or just an elaborate lie. Chapter 2. Fragments of a Life I Don't Remember. An hour later, a woman arrived with a breakfast tray and a leather portfolio thick with documents. She was older, maybe 50, with kind eyes and gray streaking through her dark hair. "Your Majesty," she said, setting the tray on a side table near the window. "It's so good to see you awake. We've all been praying to the moon goddess for your recovery." I watched her carefully, searching her face for any sign of deception. "Do I know you?" I asked. Her smile faltered slightly. "I'm Marta, Your Majesty. I've been your personal attendant since you arrived at the palace. I help you dress for court, arrange your schedule, bring your morning tea." She gestured to the portfolio. "His Majesty asked me to bring you these. He thought they might help." After she left, promising to return later, I sat by the window and opened the portfolio. The first document was a marriage certificate, ornate and official, dated exactly 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days ago. My signature was at the bottom, or what was supposed to be my signature. The handwriting looked confident, looping, and elegant. Nothing like how I would write. Beneath the certificate were photographs. Dozens of them. Me in a wedding dress, standing beside Kale in front of a massive stone altar. Both of us looking serious and regal. Me laughing at some formal dinner, my hand resting on his arm. Me standing on a balcony overlooking a city of stone buildings and torchlit streets, wearing a crown of silver and moonstone that matched my ring. In every image I looked happy, confident, like I belonged in this world of power and politics. But the woman in those photographs felt like a stranger. I studied my face, searching for some spark of recognition, some memory that would crack open the wall in my mind. Nothing came. I was beautiful in the photos. I could admit that objectively. My dark hair fell in waves past my shoulders. My eyes were bright amber, unusual and striking. But it was like looking at someone else's life, someone else's happiness captured and frozen in time. The food sat untouched as I read through letters next, correspondence between me and various pack leaders, discussing border disputes and trade agreements. My handwriting again, that same confident script I didn't recognize. I apparently had opinions on military strategy, on agricultural reform, on the education system for young wolves. I sounded intelligent, passionate, engaged in the politics of this kingdom I couldn't remember. Then I found a journal. My stomach twisted as I opened the leather-bound book and saw entry after entry in that same handwriting. The first page was dated 4 years ago. "Today, I met him," it read. "The Alpha King came to my father's territory for the summer council, and when our eyes met across the gathering hall, I felt the bond snap into place like lightning through my veins. He's everything they say, powerful, dangerous, brilliant, and he's mine. The moon goddess chose him for me. I don't know whether to be terrified or exhilarated. Maybe both. I flipped through pages, reading scattered entries, descriptions of our courtship, the political complications of our union, my nervousness about becoming queen. Then the wedding, written with such joy, it made my chest ache. I married Cale Thornwick today, one entry said. I am queen now, and I've never been more certain of anything. When he looks at me, I feel seen. When he touches me, I feel safe. He is mine, and I am his, bound by more than ceremony or politics, bound by something deeper than blood. I love him. Moon goddess help me, I love him with everything I am. The words blurred as tears I didn't expect filled my eyes. This woman, this version of me, had loved him completely, had trusted him with her whole heart. But I felt nothing, just emptiness and confusion, and a growing certainty that something about this perfect story didn't add up. Because if I loved him so much, if we were so happy, why did every instinct in my body tell me to run? Chapter 3. The Castle of Whispers. I spent the next 3 days confined to the bedroom while the physician examined me daily, checking my pupils and asking me endless questions about what I could remember. The answer was always the same. Nothing before waking up in that bed. My childhood, my family, my life before Cale. All of it was gone, erased like words wiped from a chalkboard. Kyle visited every morning and evening, always asking permission before entering, always keeping his distance unless I invited him closer. I never did. He brought me more proof, gifts I'd supposedly given him, love letters in my handwriting, accounts from servants and guards about our relationship. Everyone confirmed the same story. We were madly in love, devoted to each other, inseparable. But something felt wrong. I couldn't name it, couldn't point to any specific lie, but my wolf remained agitated, pacing beneath my skin like a caged animal. She didn't recognize his scent. She didn't respond to his presence the way a mated wolf should. On the 4th day, Marta helped me dress in clothes from a wardrobe that apparently belonged to me. Soft leather pants, a deep green tunic embroidered with silver thread, boots that fit perfectly. Everything was exactly my size, exactly my taste, if I had to guess what my taste was. His Majesty thought you might like to walk the gardens today, Marta said as she braided my hair. The fresh air could help with your recovery, and perhaps seeing familiar places will trigger some memories. I agreed, desperate to escape the suffocating bedroom. Kyle met me in the hallway outside, dressed in dark training gear that showed off the muscular build of a warrior king. You look beautiful, he said softly, and there was such longing in his voice that I almost felt guilty for not remembering him. Almost. He offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, I took it. His muscles were solid beneath my fingers, and I felt the heat of his skin through the fabric. We walked in silence through corridors of gray stone, past guards who bowed as we passed, past servants who smiled and whispered blessings for my health. The palace was massive, a fortress built into the side of a mountain, with windows that looked out over endless forest. We descended a wide staircase into the gardens, and the moment I stepped outside, something shifted in my chest. The air smelled of pine and wild roses, and the late afternoon sun filtered through the trees in golden shafts. This felt familiar. Not the specific layout of the gardens, but the feeling of being outside, of being free. My wolf surged forward, wanting to run, wanting to shift and disappear into the forest. Easy, Cale murmured beside me, and I realized my hand had tightened on his arm, my nails extending slightly into claws. Sorry, I said, pulling back and forcing my wolf down. She's restless. Kyle's expression was unreadable. She always loved to run, he said quietly. Every morning, you'd shift and race through the forest for hours. I'd join you when I could. We'd hunt together, play like cubs, forget about the weight of the crown for a while. The image he painted was beautiful, intimate. It should have felt right. Instead, it felt like he was describing someone else's life. We walked deeper into the gardens, following stone paths between flower beds and ornamental trees. Then I heard voices, low and urgent, coming from somewhere ahead, Kyle heard them too. His body tensed, and he moved slightly in front of me, protective. We rounded a corner and found two men arguing beside a fountain. One was younger, maybe 25, with sandy hair and a lean build. The other was older, heavier, with the bearing of a military commander. They both fell silent when they saw us, dropping immediately into bows. "Your Majesties," the older one said. "We didn't mean to disturb you." "What's the problem, Commander Thane?" Cale asked, his voice taking on an edge of authority that made my wolf perk up with interest. This was the king speaking now, not the gentle husband. The commander glanced at the younger man, then back at Cale. "Just a disagreement about patrol schedules, Your Majesty. Nothing that concerns you." But I saw the look that passed between them, the way the younger man's jaw tightened with barely controlled anger. And I saw something else, too. The way both of them looked at me, just for a second, with something that might have been pity or might have been guilt. "Your Majesty," the younger man said suddenly, addressing me directly. "It's good to see you recovered. We were all worried when—" "That's enough, Marcus," Commander Thane cut him off sharply. "Her Majesty needs rest, not to be bothered with pack business." They bowed again and left quickly, but not before Marcus looked back at me one more time, his eyes filled with something I couldn't read. Cale watched them go, his expression cold and distant. "Who were they?" I asked. "Just guards," he said dismissively. "No one important." But that was a lie. I knew it in my bones. The commander had been afraid of something, and Marcus had wanted to tell me something before he was silenced. And Cale, my supposed husband, the man who claimed to love me more than life itself, had just lied to my face. For the first time since waking up, I felt something besides confusion. I felt the sharp, cold edge of suspicion. And I began to wonder if the real reason I couldn't remember my life with Cale was because that life had never existed at all. Chapter 4. The Portrait in the West Wing. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the encounter in the garden over and over. The way Marcus had looked at me. The fear in Commander Thane's eyes. Cale's smooth lie. Something was wrong. Something beyond just my missing memories. Around midnight I gave up on sleep and slipped out of bed. I pulled on a robe and opened the bedroom door as quietly as possible. The hallway was empty, lit only by torches that cast dancing shadows on the stone walls. I didn't have a plan, just a desperate need to find answers. I walked slowly, listening for guards, but the palace seemed almost deserted at this hour. I passed closed doors and silent corridors, moving deeper into the West Wing, guided by nothing but instinct. Then I found a room that made me stop. The door was slightly ajar, and through the gap I could see paintings hung on the walls, illuminated by moonlight streaming through tall windows. An art gallery, maybe, or a portrait hall. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was long and narrow, lined with portraits of stern-faced men and women in formal dress, past rulers maybe, or important pack members. I walked along the wall, studying each painting. Then I reached the far end of the room and stopped breathing. The portrait was massive, dominating the entire wall. It showed a woman in a silver gown, wearing the same moonstone crown I'd seen in my wedding photos. She had dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, and bright amber eyes that looked out from the canvas with intelligence and warmth. She looked almost exactly like me. Almost, but not quite. The shape of her face was slightly different, her nose a bit more delicate, her smile softer. This woman was beautiful, regal, every inch a queen. And beneath the portrait on a small brass plaque was a name and 2 dates. Queen Seraphine Vale, beloved wife of King Cale Thornwick, lost to us too soon. The second date was 6 months ago. My legs gave out. I sank to the floor in front of the portrait, my mind racing. This woman, the real Seraphine, was dead. She'd been dead for 6 months, which meant I wasn't her. I wasn't the king's wife. I was someone else, someone who looked enough like her that Kale could pretend, could dress me in her clothes and put her ring on my finger and tell me stories about a life that had never been mine. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding, but I had nowhere to hide. Kale appeared in the doorway, dressed in sleep clothes, his hair disheveled. His eyes went immediately to the portrait, then to me. "Seraphine," he said, and his voice was raw, with something that might have been panic or grief or both. "You shouldn't be here." "Who am I?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "If she's Seraphine, if she's your dead wife, then who the hell am I?" Kale stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. In the moonlight, he looked older, wearier, like the mask he'd been wearing had finally cracked. "You deserve the truth," he said quietly. He moved to stand beside me, both of us staring up at the portrait of the dead queen. "Her name was Seraphine," he began. "We married 3 years ago, just as I told you. She was brilliant, kind, everything a queen should be. And I loved her. I loved her so much it consumed me." His voice broke slightly. 6 months ago, rogues attacked during a border patrol. She was killed protecting children from the pack nursery, just like I said. I held her while she died. I watched the light leave her eyes, and something inside me died with her. I wanted to interrupt, to demand answers, but something about his pain kept me silent. "I couldn't accept it," Kale continued. "I couldn't accept that she was gone. I searched for months for a way to bring her back. Ancient magic, forbidden rituals, anything. Then my scouts found you." He finally looked at me and his eyes were devastated. "You were a rogue, living alone in the Northern Territories. No pack, no family, and you looked so much like her, almost identical. It seemed like fate, like the moon goddess was giving me a second chance." The horror of what he was saying crashed over me like ice water. "You brought me here," I whispered. "You took me from my life and turned me into her." "I gave you a better life," Kyle said, but there was no conviction in his words anymore. "You were barely surviving out there, half-starved and alone. I offered you comfort, safety, a place in my pack. All you had to do was become her." "And if I refused?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Kale's silence was confirmation enough. "The head injury," I said slowly. "That wasn't from rogues, was it? You did something to me. You took my memories." "The royal healers performed a ritual," he admitted. "One that would suppress your memories and make you more receptive to accepting your new identity. It was supposed to make the transition easier for you. I thought if you didn't remember your old life, you could fully become Seraphine. You could be happy here. We could be happy. You made me into a ghost," I said, my voice rising. "You stole my memories, my identity, my life, so you could play pretend with your dead wife's replacement." Kyle reached for me, but I jerked away. "Please," he said desperately. "I know it was wrong. I know I've done something unforgivable. But these past 2 weeks, seeing you in pain, not knowing if you'd wake up, I realized I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't keep lying to you. That's why I let you explore, why I didn't stop you from finding this room. I wanted you to know the truth." "What's my real name?" I demanded. "I don't know," he said, and the admission seemed to cost him. "You never told my scouts. They found you half dead from cold exposure and brought you to the palace. By the time the healers finished the ritual, your memories were already gone." I felt like I was falling, tumbling through darkness with nothing to grab onto. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I came from. Everything, my past, my identity, my very self, had been stolen by a king too broken by grief to see the monster he'd become. "I want to leave," I said, my voice cold and dead. "I want out of this palace. Out of your pack. Away from you." Kyle's face went pale. "You can't," he said. "The ritual that suppressed your memories, it's tied to this territory. If you cross the border, the magic will rebound. It could kill you. You're bound here, to this land, to this pack, to me. Chapter 5. The Healer's Secret. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat on the floor of my bedroom. No, not my bedroom. The dead queen's bedroom, and tried to piece together fragments of truth from the wreckage of lies. By dawn, I'd made a decision. I couldn't leave the territory without dying. I couldn't get my memories back without help. But I could find out who had performed this ritual and whether it could be reversed. And I could make Cale Thornwick pay for what he'd stolen from me. When Marta arrived with breakfast, I was already dressed and waiting. I need to see the royal healers, I told her, the ones who treated me after the attack. Marta's cheerful expression faltered. Your Majesty, I don't think that's... I wasn't asking permission, I said coldly, channeling every ounce of authority the real Seraphine must have possessed. Take me to them. Now. She hesitated, clearly torn between her loyalty to Cale and her duty to me. Finally, she nodded. Follow me. The healing wing was in the eastern tower, a series of rooms that smelled of herbs and antiseptic. Marta led me to a large chamber where an elderly woman was grinding something with a mortar and pestle. She looked up as we entered, and I saw recognition flash in her eyes, followed immediately by guilt. Your Majesty, she said, setting down her tools. I'm glad to see you've recovered. I want to talk to you, I said. Alone. Marta looked uncertain, but I nodded toward the door until she left, closing it behind her. The healer, her name was Alara, I remembered from Cale's introduction weeks ago, watched me with wary eyes. You performed a ritual on me 6 months ago, I said, cutting straight to the truth. One that suppressed my memories. I want to know exactly what you did and how to reverse it. Alara's face went pale. His Majesty told you. His Majesty lied to me, I corrected. About everything. Now you're going to tell me the truth, or I'll make sure everyone in this pack knows what you did. What you helped him do. It was a bluff. I had no power here, no allies, nothing but desperation. But Alara didn't know that. She sagged against the workbench, suddenly looking much older. It was called the Moonveil Binding, she said quietly. An ancient ritual used in extreme cases to help traumatized wolves forget unbearable pain. It suppresses memories by creating a barrier in the mind, sealed with magic tied to a specific territory. And breaking that barrier? I asked. If you leave the territory, the magic reacts violently, Alara explained. The memories would come flooding back all at once, overwhelming your mind. Most wolves who've tried it died from the shock. Their brains couldn't handle the sudden return of everything they'd lost. My stomach twisted. So I'm trapped. Not exactly, Alara said, glancing toward the door as if afraid someone might overhear. There is a way to reverse the ritual safely, but it requires the one who commissioned it to willingly break the binding. Only Cale can free you. I laughed bitterly. And why would he do that? I'm his perfect replacement for the wife he lost. He'll never let me go. Maybe not willingly, Alara agreed. But the binding has a weakness. It was created with his blood, sealed with his intention. If you could somehow break his will, make him genuinely want to release you. She trailed off, leaving the implication hanging. How do I break someone who's already broken? I asked. Alara met my eyes, and something in her expression shifted from guilt to resolve. You make him see what he's become, she said. King Cale was a good man once, before grief twisted him. If you can show him the monster he's turned into, the harm he's caused you, maybe his conscience will do what his heart refuses to. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was the only option I had. There's something else, Alara said hesitantly. Something I think you should know. The real Seraphine, before she died, she came to me. She was terrified, said the king was changing, becoming obsessive and controlling. She thought he might hurt her if she tried to leave. The words hit me like a physical blow. Are you saying he killed her? I don't know, Alara admitted. The official story is that rogues attacked, and she died defending the children. But I've always wondered, the king was there that day. He was supposed to protect her. And after she died, he showed no signs of the grief you'd expect from a mate bond breaking. Just this cold, determined obsession with bringing her back. I thought about the portrait, the way Cale had spoken about Seraphine with reverence, but not the raw, devastating pain of a true mate bond. They weren't fated mates, I said slowly, understanding clicking into place. He loved her, but the moon goddess didn't choose them for each other. Alara nodded. He married her for political reasons, and love grew over time. But it wasn't the bond. When she died, it hurt him, broke him even. But it didn't destroy him the way losing a true mate would. That's why he could even conceive of replacing her. To him, you were similar enough that he could make it work. I felt sick. This whole nightmare, my stolen memories, my stolen identity, was because a king couldn't accept that his political marriage had ended in death. "Help me," I said to Alara. "Help me find a way to make him break the binding. I don't care what it takes. I want my life back." Alara studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "The Alpha King has a council meeting in 3 days," she said. "All the regional alphas will be here, along with their advisors and warriors. It's the one time when he has to present himself as a just and righteous leader. If you were to publicly challenge him, to expose what he's done in front of the entire council, he'd have to either defend his actions or admit he was wrong," I finished. "And either way, the pressure might be enough to break him." It was dangerous. If Cale decided to silence me instead of face the consequences, I'd have no protection. But danger was better than this gilded cage where I played the ghost of a dead woman. "Tell me everything I need to know about this council," I said. "Every alpha who'll be there, every political alliance, every weakness in Cale's position. I'm going to burn his perfect lie to the ground." Chapter 6. The Alpha Who Knew My Face. For 3 days, I prepared. Alara smuggled me documents about the council members, teaching me the political landscape of the kingdom while pretending to check my recovery. I learned that Cale ruled over 5 regional territories, each governed by an alpha who owed him loyalty but chafed under his authority. The most powerful was Alpha Rowan Bloodmore of the Northern Territories, the same region where Cale's scouts had found me. If anyone might have information about who I'd been before the ritual, it would be him. I also learned that several council members had questioned Seraphine's death, suspicious of the convenient rogue attack that left no witnesses except the king, but they'd been silenced, threatened with charges of treason if they continued investigating. Cale's grief had made him paranoid and dangerous. The morning of the council meeting, Marta dressed me in formal court attire, a gown of midnight blue that was supposed to be Seraphine's favorite. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was wearing a dead woman's clothes to expose the man who'd tried to turn me into her. Cale came to escort me to the council chamber, looking regal in formal black with silver embroidery. "You don't have to attend," he said quietly. "I know the truth is still difficult for you to process. You can rest if you'd prefer." "I want to be there," I said, meeting his eyes. "I want to see how a king rules his people." Something flickered in his expression. Doubt, maybe, or worry, but he offered his arm. We walked together through the palace, and I felt the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on my shoulders. If this failed, I might not survive the day. The council chamber was circular, with a raised throne at the center and benches arranged in a half circle for the regional alphas. Guards stood at every exit. When Cale and I entered, everyone rose and bowed. I scanned their faces, looking for Alpha Rowan. I found him in the front row, a man in his 40s with dark hair streaked with silver and eyes that were startling green. When he looked at me, his expression froze. Just for a second, I saw shock and recognition flash across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by careful neutrality. But I'd seen it. He knew me. He knew who I really was. The meeting began with routine business, border disputes, trade agreements, reports on rogue activity. I sat beside Cale's throne in a smaller chair, playing the role of supportive queen while my mind raced. How did I know Alpha Rowan? Was I from his territory originally? Did he know what Kyle had done to me? After an hour, Kale called for a break. Alphas stood and stretched, breaking into small groups to talk. I watched Rowan carefully. He kept glancing at me when he thought no one was looking, his expression troubled. I needed to talk to him alone. I stood and touched Kyle's arm. "I need to step out for a moment," I said quietly. "Will you be all right?" Kale looked concerned, but nodded. "Don't go far. I'll have guards escort you." Perfect. I walked toward the exit, flanked by 2 guards, but instead of going to the washroom, I turned down a side corridor. "Your Majesty, this isn't the way," one guard protested. "I need air," I said firmly. "The chamber is too crowded. I'll just step out to the balcony." They exchanged uncertain looks, but followed me as I pushed through a door onto a stone balcony overlooking the forest. The moment we were outside, I heard footsteps behind us. Alpha Rowan had followed. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice carefully formal. "Might I have a word? There's a matter concerning the northern border I'd like to discuss with you privately." The guards looked uncertain again, but I nodded. "Give us a moment," I told them. They moved to the far end of the balcony, out of earshot, but still visible. Rowan turned to me, and up close I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands clenched at his sides. "Who are you?" he asked in a low voice. "What did he do to you?" "I don't know who I am," I admitted. 6 months ago, Kale's scouts found me in the Northern Territories. I was alone, half dead. They brought me here and performed a ritual that erased my memories. He's been pretending I'm his dead wife ever since. Rowan's face went white. "Lyra," he breathed. "Your name is Lyra Ashwin. You're from my territory. You're my daughter's best friend." The name crashed through me like thunder, and for a moment I felt something shift in my mind. A flicker of recognition, a shadow of a memory trying to surface. Then the moonveil binding clamped down hard, and pain seared through my skull. I gasped, grabbing the balcony railing. "Easy," Rowan said, steadying me. "Don't try to remember too fast. The binding will fight you." "Tell me," I managed through gritted teeth. "Tell me who I was." "Your pack was slaughtered by rogues 2 years ago," Rowan said quietly, his voice thick with old grief. "You were the only survivor. You came to my territory asking for sanctuary, but you were broken, traumatized. You couldn't bear to be around people. After a few months, you left. You said you needed to be alone, to heal. My daughter Kalis tried to convince you to stay, but you vanished into the wilderness." Kalis. The name sent another jolt of recognition through me. I saw a flash of a memory, a girl with wild red hair laughing, throwing an arm around my shoulders. My friend. My sister, in all but blood. "She thinks I'm dead," I realized. Rowan nodded grimly. "When Kale's scouts reported finding a rogue female in the Northern Territories, I didn't make the connection. You'd been gone for months. I thought you'd either died in the wilderness or found another pack. I never imagined." He looked back toward the council chamber, toward where Kale waited. "I never imagined our king would be capable of something like this." "He's been lying to everyone," I said. "The real Seraphine, I think something happened to her. Something he doesn't want investigated. And now he's using me to maintain his power, to keep up the appearance that everything is fine." "Then we expose him," Rowan said fiercely. "Right now, in front of the entire council. I'll back you. I'll tell them who you really are." "No," I said, my mind racing. "If you speak up, he'll just claim you're lying, that you're trying to destabilize his rule. It has to come from me. I have to make him confess." Rowan studied me with new respect. "You have a plan." "Something like that," I said. "But I need your help. When I confront him, I need you to confirm my identity, and I need you to demand a formal investigation into what happened to the real Seraphine." "Done," Rowan said without hesitation. "Lyra, don't," I interrupted. "Don't call me that. Not yet. Not until I've earned the right to reclaim my name." I looked back toward the council chamber, where a tyrant king sat on his throne, convinced his lies were secure. First, I'm going to make him face what he's done. Then I'm going to take back everything he stole from me. Chapter 7. The Queen's Accusation. I walked back into the council chamber with my heart pounding, but my expression serene. Kyle looked up as I returned to my seat, searching my face for signs of distress. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "I'm perfect," I said, and meant it. For the first time since waking in his bed, I felt like myself, not the ghost of Seraphine, not the confused victim, but someone with purpose and power. The council reconvened, and Kale began discussing military deployments. I let him talk for 10 minutes, let everyone settle into the comfortable routine of bureaucratic discussion. Then I stood. The room went silent. Queens didn't interrupt council meetings. "I have something to say," I announced, my voice carrying across the chamber. Kale's expression flickered with confusion. "Seraphine, this isn't the time." "My name," I said clearly, loudly, "is not Seraphine." The silence deepened. I could feel every eye in the room locked on me, feel the shock rolling through the gathered alphas. Kale stood slowly, his face going dangerously blank. "You're not well," he said. "The injury is still affecting you. Guards, escort the Queen." "I am not your queen," I said, cutting him off. "I never was. The woman you married, the real Seraphine Vale, died 6 months ago. I am someone else. Someone your scouts kidnapped from the Northern Territories. Someone whose memories you erased so you could pretend your dead wife had come back to life." The room erupted. Alphas surged to their feet, shouting questions and denials. Kyle's face went white, then red with rage. "This is insane," he roared. "You're confused, disoriented. The head injury—" "There was no rogue attack," I continued relentlessly. "The injury came from your healers when they performed the Moonveil binding ritual, a forbidden magic that suppresses memories and binds a wolf to a territory. Check your own records. Ask your own healers. They'll confirm everything I'm saying." Alpha Rowan stood, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I can confirm her identity," he said. "This woman is Lyra Ashwin, a survivor from the Ashwin Pack massacre. She sought sanctuary in my territory 2 years ago, then vanished into the wilderness 6 months ago. I would know her anywhere." The room exploded again. Alphas were shouting at Kyle, at me, at each other. Guards moved forward, uncertain whether to intervene or stand down. Kyle's eyes locked on mine, and I saw murder there. Pure, cold rage. "You're lying," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "You're sick, manipulated by enemies of the Crown. Alpha Rowan, you will be investigated for treason." "For telling the truth," I challenged. "For confirming what everyone in this room already suspects? That something about Seraphine's death never added up? That you've been acting increasingly paranoid and unstable since she died?" I stepped down from the raised platform, moving to the center of the chamber. "You want proof? Fine. Test my blood against Seraphine's records. Ask your healers to examine me for signs of the ritual. Or better yet, bring forward anyone who actually knew the real Seraphine. Let them look at me and tell you if I have her mannerisms, her memories, her personality." The challenge hung in the air. Kyle couldn't refuse without looking guilty, but agreeing meant exposing his crime. "This is a conspiracy," he said, but his voice lacked conviction now. "An attempt to destabilize the kingdom." "Then prove me wrong," I demanded. "Prove that I'm really Seraphine. Let me leave this territory. If I'm truly bound by the Moonveil binding like I claim, the attempt will kill me. But if I'm just confused and lying, I'll be fine. Let me go, Kale. If you're innocent, you have nothing to fear." He stared at me, trapped. If he let me leave and I died, it would confirm everything I'd said. If he refused, it would prove his guilt. "I won't risk your life," he said finally. Even if you're confused, even if you've been manipulated, I won't let you kill yourself to prove a point. How convenient, Alpha Rowan said coldly. You won't allow the one test that could prove your innocence. Another Alpha stood, a woman I recognized as Alpha Thyra Wolfsong from the Eastern Territories. I move for a formal investigation, she said. Into the Queen's death, into these accusations, into everything. If King Kale is innocent, the investigation will confirm it. If he's not, she let the implication hang. Other Alphas voiced agreement. The tide was turning against Kale, and he knew it. I watched his face cycle through emotions. Rage, fear, desperation. Then something shifted. His shoulders sagged. The mask cracked completely. Stop, he said quietly. Just stop. The room went silent again, everyone watching as the Alpha King seemed to collapse in on himself. It's true, he admitted, his voice hollow. All of it. I found her in the Northern Territories. I brought her here. I had the healers perform the ritual. I tried to make her into Seraphine because I couldn't accept that she was gone. The confessions spilled out of him like poison draining from a wound. Seraphine died in the rogue attack exactly as reported. I was there. I tried to save her and failed. The grief nearly killed me. I searched for months for a way to bring her back. Then I found Lyra, and she looked so much like Seraphine that it felt like a sign. I thought if I could just make it work, if I could just convince her she was Seraphine, then I could have my wife back. I could stop the pain. He looked at me with devastated eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I just couldn't let her go. I felt no sympathy. You didn't just hurt me, I said coldly. You destroyed me. You stole my identity, my memories, my life. You turned me into a puppet for your grief. I know, he said. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to atone. I'll break the binding. I'll give you everything you need to recover your memories. I'll step down from the throne, if that's what it takes. Just please know that I never stopped caring about you. Even when I was trying to make you into her, some part of me saw you. Lyra. The strong, fierce woman who survived horrors I can't imagine. I didn't deserve you. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm sorry. The room was silent as death. Then Alpha Rowan spoke. You will break the binding, he said. Tonight. And then you will face a formal council vote on whether you're fit to remain as Alpha King. Kyle nodded slowly. I understand. He turned to me one last time. I'll make this right, he said. I'll give you back everything I took. I promise. I looked at the broken king who'd stolen my life and felt nothing but emptiness where rage should have been. Don't make me promises, I said. Just set me free. Chapter 8. Breaking the Binding. That night, the entire council gathered in the ritual chamber beneath the palace. It was a circular room carved from black stone, with channels cut into the floor for blood and power. Kyle stood in the center, looking older than his years, exhausted by confession and guilt. I stood across from him with Alpha Rowan at my side, flanked by healers including Alara. The other Alphas formed a circle around us, witnesses to ensure the ritual was done correctly. The Moonveil binding was created with his blood and sealed with his intention, Alara explained to the council. To break it safely, he must reverse both. He must spill his blood while genuinely desiring to release her, with no reservation or hidden agenda. If there's any doubt in his heart, any part of him that still wants to keep her bound, the ritual will fail and could kill them both. I understand, Kale said. He held a silver dagger, the blade already prepared with runes. I'm ready. Are you? I asked coldly. Are you really ready to let go? Or is some part of you still hoping that if you break this binding, I'll remember my life with you and choose to stay? Kale flinched. I won't lie to you anymore, he said. Part of me hopes that when you remember, you'll see that I tried to make you happy. That despite everything I did wrong, there were moments between us that were real. But I also know that's selfish. I know you deserve to be free, to reclaim your life, to hate me if that's what you need. He drew the dagger across his palm, and blood welled up, dripping onto the runes carved in the floor. They began to glow with silver light. I release you, Lyra Ashwin, he said formally. I break the binding I placed upon you. I free your memories, your identity, your will. No longer are you bound to this territory or to me. I return what I stole, and I accept whatever consequences come from my crime. The power in the room shifted. I felt something snap inside my mind, like chains falling away. Then the memories came flooding back. Not all at once like Alara had warned, but in manageable waves, each one clicking into place like pieces of a puzzle I'd been trying to solve. I remembered my childhood in the Ashwin Pack, my parents, my younger brother, growing up surrounded by forest and family. I remembered the night the rogues attacked, the screams and blood and desperate fighting. I remembered watching my mother die, protecting me, telling me to run. I'd run. Goddess help me, I'd run while my pack burned. I remembered the guilt that followed, the way it ate at me even after I found sanctuary with Alpha Rowan. I remembered his daughter Kalis trying to help me heal, trying to make me laugh again, but the nightmares were too strong. I remembered leaving in the middle of the night, unable to bear being around people who reminded me of everything I'd lost. I remembered months alone in the wilderness, living as a wolf more than a woman, hunting and sleeping and trying to forget. Then I remembered the cold, the terrible cold when winter came. I'd pushed too far into the mountains, gotten caught in a blizzard, collapsed in the snow. I remembered scouts in royal colors finding me, carrying me to warmth. I remembered waking in a healer's chamber, confused and weak. Then, nothing for a while. Blank spaces where the ritual had stolen pieces of me. Then fragmentary memories of the last 6 months, living as Seraphine, wearing her clothes, sleeping in her bed, trying to be someone I wasn't, while Kale watched me with desperate, hungry eyes. The memories stabilized. I gasped, falling to my knees as the weight of my entire life came crashing back. Rowan was there immediately, supporting me. Easy, he murmured. Let it settle. When I could breathe again, when the world stopped spinning, I looked up at Kyle. He was still standing in the center of the circle, blood dripping from his palm, watching me with devastated eyes. Do you remember? He asked hoarsely. Everything, I said. I remember who I was. I remember what you did to me. And I remember 6 months of living a lie. I stood on shaking legs, shrugging off Rowan's steadying hand. I walked to Kyle, and he stood his ground, even though he must have known I wanted to hurt him. For 6 months, I wore her clothes, I said quietly, my voice shaking with rage. I slept in her bed. I answered to her name. I had healers and servants tell me stories about her life like it was mine. You made me into a ghost, and you did it because you were too selfish and broken to let go. I know, Kale said. I know, and I'm sorry. Your sorry means nothing, I said. Sorry doesn't give me back the 6 months you stole. Sorry doesn't erase the violation of having my mind torn apart and rebuilt. Sorry doesn't fix the fact that I'll never fully trust my own memories again because I know how easily they can be taken. I was crying now, angry tears streaming down my face. You broke me, Kyle. Not the way the rogues broke me when they killed my pack. Not the way grief broke me when I watched my mother die. You broke me in a new way, a worse way, by making me doubt my own reality. I know, he repeated, and he was crying too. If I could take it all back, if I could undo it, I would. But I can't. All I can do is give you justice. He turned to the council, his voice growing stronger. I formally resign as Alpha King, he announced, effective immediately. I will submit to whatever punishment the council deems appropriate for my crimes. Imprisonment, exile, death, I accept it all. I only ask that you let Lyra go free, with whatever resources she needs to rebuild her life. The Alphas murmured among themselves. Alpha Thyra spoke first. We accept your resignation, she said. The council will deliberate on your punishment. But that's not the only matter to be settled tonight. She looked at me. Lyra Ashwin, you are the wronged party in this crime. By ancient law, you have the right to demand blood justice, to kill the one who violated you and take his life as payment for what was stolen. The room held its breath. Cale didn't move, didn't try to defend himself. He just stood there waiting for my judgment. I thought about it. Goddess knows I thought about taking his life, about making him pay in the most permanent way possible. But then I thought about who I'd been before the rogues, before the grief, before Cale. I'd been someone who believed in mercy, someone who'd valued life above vengeance. The rogues had tried to take that from me. I wouldn't let Cale's crimes finish what they started. No, I said finally. I don't want him dead. I want him to live with what he's done. I want him to wake up every day knowing he destroyed someone's life for his own selfish comfort. Death would be too easy. I looked at Cale one last time. You're going to spend the rest of your life trying to be the man Seraphine thought you were. The kind, just leader she fell in love with. You're going to help people, protect the vulnerable, fight against anyone who would abuse power the way you did. You're going to make sure no one else ever suffers what you put me through. I will, Cale promised. I swear it on Seraphine's memory, on what we had before I destroyed it. I'll spend the rest of my life atoning. Good, I said. Then I turned my back on him and walked toward Alpha Rowan. I want to go home, I told him, to your territory, to Kalis. I want to see my friend again. Rowan smiled, warm and genuine. She'll be so happy to see you. She's missed you terribly. As we left the ritual chamber, I heard the council begin debating Cale's fate. I didn't stay to listen. Whatever happened to him was no longer my concern. I had my memories back. I had my name back. I had my life back. And for the first time in 6 months, I was finally free. Chapter 9. The Girl Who Remembered Me. 3 days later, I stood at the border of Rowan's territory, breathing in the scent of pine and mountain air. It smelled like home, not the home I'd lost when my pack died, but the home I'd found after. The place where I'd tried to heal before the grief drove me away. Rowan had arranged for a small escort to bring me back, but I'd insisted on walking the last mile alone. I needed this. Needed to cross the border on my own terms, free and whole, and myself. The settlement came into view around midday, a cluster of wooden buildings built into the hillside, smoke rising from chimneys, children playing in the central square. My heart squeezed. This was where I'd spent those few, precious months after the massacre, where people had tried to help me even when I couldn't help myself. A shout went up as someone spotted me. Then another. People began gathering, coming out of buildings, staring in shock and disbelief. I saw familiar faces, warriors who'd taught me to fight, elders who'd offered me counsel, mothers who'd tried to feed me even when I couldn't eat. Then I saw her. Kalis came running out of a large building on the hill, her wild red hair streaming behind her, her face a mask of disbelief and hope. She stopped 10 feet away from me, breathing hard. "Lyra?" she whispered. "Is it really you? They said you were dead. They said—" She couldn't finish. She just stood there, tears streaming down her face. I closed the distance between us and pulled her into a fierce hug. "I'm here," I told her. "I'm real. I'm alive." Kalis sobbed into my shoulder, her whole body shaking. "I thought I'd lost you," she said. "You left and you never came back, and I thought the wilderness had taken you. I thought I'd never see you again." "I know," I said, my own tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I left. I couldn't breathe here. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of what I'd lost, and I thought if I could just be alone, if I could just escape. I understand, Kayla said, pulling back to look at me. I was angry at first, but I understood. You were drowning in grief, and we didn't know how to help you. I'm just glad you're alive. I'm glad you came back. We spent the rest of the day catching up, surrounded by pack members who wanted to welcome me home. I told Kalis everything. The blizzard, waking up in Kale's palace, the 6 months of living as someone else, the ritual and the binding, and finally breaking free. She listened with growing horror and rage, her hands clenching into fists. He should die for what he did to you, she said fiercely. He should be torn apart by rogues. He should live with it, I interrupted gently. That's worse than death for someone like him. Trust me. That night, Kalis's father held a feast to celebrate my return. The pack gathered in the great hall, and I sat at the high table beside Rowan and his family, feeling strange and wonderful and terrified all at once. I belonged here. For the first time in years, I actually belonged somewhere. After the meal, Rowan stood to make a speech. 6 months ago, we lost someone precious, he said, his deep voice carrying across the hall. Lyra Ashwin left us, and we feared she was gone forever. But tonight she's returned to us, stronger, fiercer, and more herself than ever. He looked at me, and there was pride in his eyes. What happened to Lyra was a crime against pack law, against the laws of decency, against everything we stand for as wolves. But she survived it. She fought back. She reclaimed herself, and in doing so, she reminded us all what it means to be truly strong. The hall erupted in cheers. Kalis grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing hard. Later, after most of the pack had gone to bed, Kalis and I sat on the roof of her father's house, looking up at the stars. What will you do now? She asked quietly. Stay here, I said immediately. If your father will have me. I want to join this pack officially, not just as a refugee, but as a real member. I want to help, contribute, be part of something again. You never have to ask, Kayla said. This has always been your home. We've just been waiting for you to realize it. I leaned my head on her shoulder, feeling the last pieces of myself click back into place. I'd lost so much. My birth pack, my family, 6 months of my life to Kale's madness. But I'd gained something too. I'd learned I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. I'd learned I could survive anything, even having my very self stolen from me. And I'd learned that home wasn't a place. It was people who loved you, who fought for you, who welcomed you back no matter how far you'd wandered. Chapter 10. Lyra. 6 months later, I stood in the training yard, circling a young wolf who was learning to fight. Again, I told her, and she lunged. I sidestepped easily, tapping her shoulder with my practice blade. You're telegraphing your moves. Watch your eyes. They give away your intention. She nodded, breathing hard, and reset. I'd found my place in Rowan's pack as a combat trainer. Turned out years of surviving alone in the wilderness, plus the formal training I'd received as Seraphine, had made me exceptionally skilled. I was good at teaching, patient in a way I'd never been before. Maybe because I knew what it was like to feel powerless. I never wanted anyone else to feel that way. Kalis appeared at the edge of the training yard, waving to get my attention. I called an end to the session and walked over. What's up? There's someone here to see you, she said, her expression carefully neutral. From the capital. My stomach dropped. Kyle. No, Kalis said quickly. One of his advisors. Apparently he's sent letters every week asking about you, wanting to know if you're safe, if you need anything. This is the first time he's sent someone in person. I considered refusing, but curiosity won. Fine, I'll see them. The advisor was waiting in Rowan's study, a middle-aged woman named Marta. Not the same Marta who'd been Seraphine's attendant, but someone from Kale's inner circle. She bowed when I entered. Lady Lyra, she said formally. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "What does he want?" I asked bluntly. Marta pulled out a sealed letter. "The former Alpha King asked me to deliver this personally. He also wanted me to inform you that he's dedicated the past 6 months to reforming the laws around magical rituals. The Moonveil binding is now completely illegal under penalty of death. Anyone who performs it or commissions it will face the harshest punishment possible." I took the letter but didn't open it. "Good," I said. "What else?" "He wanted you to know that he's been working with the healers to develop better treatments for trauma and memory loss. He's funding research, establishing mental health resources for wolves who have survived attacks or lost packs. He said," she hesitated, "he said he can't undo what he did to you, but he can try to make sure others get the help he failed to give you." Despite myself, I felt something soften slightly. Just slightly. "Is he happy?" I asked. "Is he healing?" Marta considered the question. "He's different," she said finally. "Quieter. More thoughtful. He visits Seraphine's grave every morning and speaks to her, telling her about the changes he's making. He's become the kind of king she always believed he could be. But happy? No. I don't think he'll ever be happy again. And I think he knows that's his punishment." After Marta left, I sat in Rowan's study and opened the letter. Cale's handwriting was neat and precise, nothing like the confident scrawl I remembered from Seraphine's journals. "Lyra," it began, "I won't insult you by saying I hope you're well, because I know the damage I've done to you is ongoing. But I hope you're finding peace. I hope you're surrounded by people who love you for exactly who you are. I hope you're learning to trust again, even though I gave you every reason never to trust anyone. I wanted you to know that I visit the place where I found you sometimes, the valley in the northern mountains where you collapsed in the snow. I stand there and think about the moment when I made my choice, when I decided my grief was more important than your agency, when I decided I had the right to reshape you into what I'd lost. I wish I'd made a different choice. I wish I'd taken you to healers who would have helped you recover naturally, then asked Rowan to find out who you were. I wish I'd given you the choice to stay or go. I wish I'd seen you as Lyra, instead of as a replacement for Seraphine. But I can't change the past. All I can do is work every day to become worthy of the mercy you showed me. You could have demanded my death, and no one would have blamed you. Instead, you let me live. You gave me the chance to do better. I'm trying, Lyra. I'm trying to be the man Seraphine thought I was, the man you deserved me to be. I'm trying to make sure no one else ever suffers what I put you through. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that your strength, your courage, your refusal to let me break you, it changed me. You saved me from becoming a monster completely, and I will spend every day of the rest of my life grateful that you survived me. Yours in eternal regret and respect, Cale. I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and put it away. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt tired. Tired of carrying anger. Tired of letting him take up space in my thoughts. Maybe someday I'd forgive him. Maybe someday I'd be able to think about those 6 months without feeling violated. But that day wasn't today. Today, I just wanted to move forward. I found Kalis in the garden, picking herbs for dinner. "Everything okay?" she asked, looking up. "Yeah," I said, and meant it. "Everything's okay." That night, the pack gathered for the full moon ceremony. We shifted together, dozens of wolves running through the forest under the silver light, howling our joy and freedom to the stars. I ran beside Kalis, my friend and sister, feeling the wind in my fur and the earth under my paws. I was Lyra Ashwin. I'd lost my birth pack, survived an attempt to erase me, and come out the other side stronger than before. I was a warrior, a teacher, a survivor. I was exactly who I was meant to be, and for the first time in years, that was enough. The end. If you made it this far, drop a comment and let me know what you thought. Did Lyra's journey move you? What would you have done in her place? And don't forget, I want to know where in the world you're watching from. Your support means everything. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.